Tun tun va ka chien con qua va ming fo mat. Mo bui sang trong lan, ben va tun tun dang ngoi dui gok ke lan trong vuan. Ben dang ma ni zeppen hung man gep hin, con tun tun ti nam loi tren ko, dui ngoing wei, vi mat de sui tu. Tun tun bong bat de, fa tan su yen tin. Ka ben, tu voi no ramot ka chien shua, kong yuan ne kong. Ben gang len, tu ma hoi. Ka chien gi ve, tun tun. Tun tun mim koi bien. Ka chien vi emoticon qua va emoticon sao, mata chin la con sao du. Ben gak nin. That's all. Ka ku di, tum yuan ne. Tun tun bat dao ko, jong de kich tin. De shua, trong emotiku rung no, ko emoticon qua den bong be qua. Trong emo, nom gam emoti ning fo mat tong fuk ma no vor le doak tu emotin goi lungon du. Con qua dao tren emoti kan ke chow, vor din thuang tuk ti tu, con sao lan loi, zut hien dui gok ke. Ben bat koi. Va roi, ka lam gi. Tun tun hang jong. Tuang we say mui tom tu ming fo mat va beat rang nin yuan no. And hung lam sa de lay drok de. The la tu dramot ko. Ben hanging nuoi vi fire trua, cham chu lang ne. Tu dung dui gok ke, nin len va noi, chow ban qua shin di peep. Bo long qua ban that den bong, trong yuan hung vei. And hung to thak mak, jong hot qua ban chuk con tuet voi han nua, dung kong. Ben koi lan. Ka nin qua de no mak kan jiak dung kong. Tun tun koi mim, gat dao. Dung vei. Con qua ne fei ti vui mung, ngang chow dao, fong mui. No ha min kat tiang, qua, that lan. Va ka beat du gi zare kong. Ben rio len. Ming fo mat roi suang. Tun tun gat dao, koi dacy. Shin zak. Tu en han chong not lay ming fo mat va noi, kem on ben vi malan gon. En hung tik la jong hot qua ban kong he chet now. Noi zong, tu che mat hot veo rung, de lai kong qua tren ke, vor za ho vor tik nui. Ben vor koi vor lak dao. Ka that la tin ran, tun tun. En hung ka kong thay toi en gip kong qua sa. Tun tun hun vai. Ko chu. En hung du la by hak cho no. Ka thay day, nu kong qua kong by loi ken lam emo mat, no de ju duok ming fo mat qua min. Ben sui gi roi noi. Tu hu roi. Ka chin nai day to fi ken then truok en hung loi nin not fa luon beat ju dio quan trong voi min. Tun tun mim koi. Dung vei, ka ben. En hung yen tom, voi ka ti tu si kong in hong lay duan dao. Tu si en tang luan. Ben bat koi. Dung la tun tun qua tu, luk now kong tang nan. Ca hai kong koi lan, ten hong bui sang ruk aro va by hak wai nia tu ka chien qua tun tun. Moral, dung de loi ken lam bang quain di ju quan trong va luan kan jiak voi en hung loi duong mat. Tun Tun and the Story of the Pebbles. After telling the story about the crow and the cheese, Tun Tun noticed that Ben was still chuckling. Tun Tun cleared his throat, trying to look serious. Hey, Ben, don't think I only play tricks on the crow. I've also helped the crow before. Ben stopped laughing and looked surprised. Really? When did you help the crow? Tell me the story. Tun Tun smiled mysteriously. Do you remember the story about the crow dropping pebbles into a pitcher to get water? Ben nodded eagerly. Of course. The crow was so clever, using pebbles to raise the water level. Tun winked. But have you ever wondered why those pebbles were conveniently next to the pitcher? You don't think that was a coincidence, do you? Tun began his tale. One day, I was strolling through the forest when I saw the crow flying in circles above a clearing. It looked like it was searching for something. I called out, "Hey, crow, what are you doing?" The crow landed on a branch and croaked. "I'm so thirsty, but this pitcher is too deep, and I can't reach the water with my beak." Tun looked at the pitcher and thought for a moment. "Why don't you just tip the pitcher over?" The crow sighed. "I've tried, but the pitcher is too heavy to move." Tun sat down, examining the situation, and said, "Wait here. Let me figure something out." Tun ran off, searching for the perfect pebbles. But the ones close to the pitcher were too few, so he had to find more from far away. Dragging a small bag of pebbles behind him, Tun muttered, "This is exhausting, but helping a friend is worth it." Finally, he returned to the pitcher with a pile of pebbles and said, "Here you go, crow. Try dropping these into the pitcher." The crow tilted its head, puzzled, but followed Tun's suggestion. One by one, the pebbles fell into the pitcher, and slowly, the water rose higher and higher. The crow cawed with delight. "Amazing! The water is almost at the top." When the water was high enough, the crow bent down and drank deeply. Turning back to Tun, it said gratefully, "Thank you, Tun. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to get this water." Tun grinned. "No need to thank me, crow. I might tease you sometimes, but helping a friend is what matters most." When the story ended, Tun looked at Ben and asked, "So, Ben, what do you think? I'm not just a trickster, right?" Ben laughed and patted Tun's shoulder. "You're right, Tun. You're clever, but you're also kind-hearted." Tun nodded proudly. "That's my style. But remember, helping a friend isn't always easy. Sometimes you have to run far, carry heavy loads, but seeing them happy makes it all worth it." Ben smiled warmly and hugged Tun. "I get it now. You're not just mischievous, you're a great friend too." The two of them laughed together, enjoying a meaningful morning under the big tree. Moral: helping a friend isn't always easy, but the effort and sincerity make it worthwhile for everyone involved.
Tun and the story of 3 Gangs of Gold. One afternoon, Ben was sitting by the window, reading a book, when Tun jumped onto the table, looking both smug and amused. "Ben, I've got an incredible story to tell you. Want to hear it?" Tun said, his voice filled with mystery. Ben looked up curiously. "What story is it, Tun?" Tun began to tell the tale, his voice dramatic and full of emotion. The Crow and a Strange Promise. One day, I was wandering in your grandma's garden when I saw a crow sitting in a starfruit tree. It was munching on the ripe, juicy fruits. After finishing, it looked down and said, "Caw, caw. Eat starfruit, repay with gold. Bring a 3-gang bag to carry." Can you imagine, Ben? The crow was talking to me. Ben burst out laughing. "So, what did you do?" Tun puffed up his chest, looking serious. "Of course, I imagined I was about to be taken to a magical island full of gold. So I grabbed a small cloth bag and climbed onto the crow's back, ready for an adventure. The land of gold." Tun Tun continued. The crow flew far and wide, over dense forests and winding rivers. I felt like a great explorer. Finally, it landed in front of a big building. Above the door, there was a sign that read, "Gold for sale." Ben clutched his stomach, laughing. Wait, it was just a gold shop? Tun Tun nodded, still looking astonished. Exactly. I hopped off and asked the crow, "Do you expect me to buy gold or steal it?" The crow chuckled and replied, "Well, here's your land full of gold. My debt is repaid." Tun Tun shook his head. I told him, "I'm not buying or stealing. Don't you have another way to repay me?" The crow thought for a moment and then said, "Alright, if you don't want gold, I'll give you some cheese instead. But on one condition, you have to listen to me sing." The special performance. Tun Tun looked at Ben and smirked. And then, do you know what happened? The crow started singing, caw, caw, caw. Oh my goodness, it was the most dreadful sound I've ever heard. Ben laughed so hard he nearly fell off his chair. Haha, I bet you regretted agreeing to that. Tun Tun laughed too. You're right. I covered my ears and shouted, "Alright, keep your cheese. I don't need anything, just stop singing." The crow stopped, grinning mischievously. I was just teasing you. Next time, I'll repay you with something truly special. A lesson for Ben. When the story ended, Tun Tun looked at Ben and shrugged. You see, Ben, sometimes promises of gold don't turn out the way you expect. But hey, the adventure was worth it. Ben chuckled, patting Tun Tun on the head. Tun Tun, you always know how to make life interesting. But next time, maybe ask a few more questions before jumping on a crow's back. Tun Tun nodded. True, but I don't regret it. At least I have this story to share with you. The two laughed together, enjoying the afternoon filled with humor and a lesson from Tun Tun's bizarre, 3 Gangs of Gold adventure. Moral: not all promises are what they seem, but unexpected experiences often create the best memories.
Tun Tun and the Story of Why Crows Are Black. One afternoon, Ben and Tun Tun were sitting under the big tree in the garden. Ben was curiously watching a crow perched on a high branch, its glossy black feathers gleaming in the sunlight. Tun Tun, why are crows black? Ben asked. Tun Tun hopped onto Ben's shoulder, smiling mysteriously. You don't know. Let me tell you a fascinating story. Ben leaned forward, excited. Go ahead, I want to hear it. The story of the peacock and the crow painting each other. Tun Tun began, his voice rising and falling like a master storyteller. Long ago, when the world was still new, all birds had plain white feathers. One day, the peacock and the crow decided it was time to paint each other to make their feathers beautiful. Ben tilted his head. And then what happened? Tun Tun continued. The peacock worked hard, carefully choosing vibrant colors to paint the crow's feathers. It painted intricate patterns, adding reds, blues, greens, and yellows. By the time it was done, the crow looked stunning, like a living masterpiece. But when it was the crow's turn to paint the peacock, the crow got lazy. Instead of painting carefully, it mixed all the colors together into a big, dark blob. Then, the crow poured it all over the peacock and said, "There you go, it's done." Ben's eyes widened in shock. Poor crow. Tun Tun winked. But you know what? The crow wasn't upset at all. Instead, it looked at its shiny black feathers and said, "I like this. Black is mysterious and powerful." Ben laughed. So, the crow was proud of its black feathers? Tun Tun nodded. Exactly. From that day on, crows became symbols of mystery and strength. Why is Tun Tun green? Ben looked at Tun curiously and asked, "What about you? Why are you green?" Tun took a deep breath, putting on a serious face. "You know, lizards like me come in all kinds of colors. Some are brown to hide in the sand, some are gray to blend with rocks. But me? I chose green so I could match your orange fur." Ben laughed happily, patting Tun on the head. "You're the best, Tun." Tun grinned mischievously. "But hey, if you want to be mysterious like the crow, I could paint you black right now." Ben waved his paws frantically. "No, no, no. I love my orange fur just the way it is. Don't you dare." The two of them burst out laughing, enjoying the funny story and the playful banter under the tree. Moral: be proud of your colors and the beauty that makes you unique, for every color has its own special meaning. Tun and the Crow Story. One sunny morning, Ben and Tun were playing in the garden when they heard a familiar caw, caw from a nearby tree. A glossy black crow sat alone on a branch, its feathers shining in the sunlight. Tun waved and called out, "Hey, crow! Alone again today?" The crow tilted its head and replied, "Yes, as always, Tun." Ben, curious, asked, "Why are you always by yourself?" The crow sighed and said, "That's a story only Tun knows, but if you'd like, I'll share it with you." The Crow's Story. The crow began, its voice tinged with sadness. "I used to wish for lots of friends, just like the big flocks other birds had. One day, I saw a group of doves flying together. They looked so happy and close-knit. I thought, if I could be like them, maybe I could join their flock." Tun interjected, "And that's when you came up with a plan, right?" The crow nodded. "Exactly. I thought if I looked like a dove, they'd accept me. So, I covered my black feathers with white powder and flew over to join their flock." Ben's eyes widened. "Did they notice?" The crow shook its head. "Not at first. They thought I was just a strange-looking dove. But soon, they realized I couldn't coo like a dove, and my movements weren't as graceful." Tun frowned. "And they kicked you out, didn't they?" The crow let out a deep sigh. "Yes. They told me I didn't belong and asked me to leave." Returning to the flock. The crow continued. "After that, I went back to my own flock, hoping to rejoin them. But when I returned, they wouldn't accept me either. They said, 'You pretended to be a dove, so you're no longer one of us.'" Ben looked sad. "So what did you do?" The crow lowered its head and replied, "I didn't have a flock anymore. But over time, I realized something important. I don't need to be like anyone else. I just need to be myself. And even though I don't have a big flock, I've found true friends, like Tun here." Ben and the lesson. Ben smiled at Tun and said, "You're such a good friend, Tun." Tun grinned and looked up at the crow. "The crow and I often sit and talk. It's taught me that it's not about how many friends you have. What matters is having friends who accept you for who you are." The crow nodded. "Exactly. And now, I'm happy with what I have." Ben patted Tun's head, smiling warmly. "Thank you, both of you. This story has taught me that I don't need to change to fit in. Being myself is the best thing I can be." Tun smirked mischievously. "But if you ever want to try being a dove, I can find some powder to cover your fur." Ben jumped back, waving his paws. "No, no. I love my orange fur just the way it is." The three of them laughed together, enjoying a meaningful morning in the cool shade of the garden. Moral: be yourself and appreciate the people who accept you for who you truly are. Ben the Cat and a story about the crow and the eagle. One afternoon, Ben was lying under the starfruit tree, gazing at the golden fruits hanging high above. Dreamily, he said to Tun Tun, "I wish I could fly like an eagle, soaring up to pick those starfruits without having to climb or work hard." Hearing this, a familiar crow perched on a nearby branch spoke up. "Ben, that wish isn't wrong, but let me tell you a story about one of my kind. It's a tale that teaches why not everyone can be like an eagle." Ben sat up, intrigued. "What story is that, Crow?" The story of the crow and the eagle. The crow began, its tone steady yet full of meaning. Once upon a time, there was a crow who lived near a tall mountain, where eagles often hunted. One day, the crow watched as an eagle spread its majestic wings, swooped down, and captured a lamb. The eagle soared high into the sky, carrying its prey back to its nest. Ben's eyes widened in admiration. "Wow! Eagles are so powerful." The crow nodded. "They are. But this particular crow thought, if the eagle can do it, so can I." One day, when it saw a flock of sheep grazing, the crow decided to mimic the eagle. Tun Tun interjected. "And what happened next?" The crow sighed. The crow dove down as fast as it could and tried to grab a lamb with its claws. But the lamb was too big and heavy, and the crow's talons weren't strong enough. Worse, its claws got tangled in the lamb's thick wool. Ben laughed. "Really? That must have been so embarrassing." The crow shook its head and continued. The crow struggled and flapped its wings, but it couldn't break free. The lamb kept grazing peacefully, while the crow was stuck. Just then, the farmer came by. He caught the crow and said, "You're not an eagle. Don't try to do what's beyond your ability." The lesson learned. Ben nodded thoughtfully. "That's a big lesson for the crow to learn." The crow looked at Ben with shining eyes. Indeed. From that day, the crow realized it wasn't meant to be an eagle. Instead of imitating others, it learned to take pride in what it could do. Tun Tun chuckled. "So, Ben, don't try to be an eagle. If you want starfruits, use your own strength to climb or ask someone to help you pick them." Ben smiled, gazing up at the starfruit tree. "I understand now. Don't try to imitate what's beyond your ability. Be proud of what you can do and work hard for what you want." The crow nodded. "That's right, Ben. Those who take pride in themselves will always find true happiness." A meaningful ending. Ben got up, picked up a long stick, and began carefully picking the ripe golden starfruits. As he worked, he said, "I don't need to be an eagle. I'll just be a hard-working and happy cat." The crow and Tun Tun laughed together, satisfied that Ben had learned a valuable lesson from the story. Moral: don't try to be something you're not. Embrace your strengths and do your best with what you have.